And since it's relatively short, no trivia questions today. Those of you who've had me know that I'm going to start with a trivia question. So I'm going to talk about practice material, and if we have time, I was sitting in the office this morning and thought, I don't think anyone's talking about ordinances. And that's something that often gets dumped on either summer associates or young practitioners. You know, the senior partner doesn't want to give up his or her Wednesday to go to meetings of a particular town council or village council or city council or some board. So they dump that on the young practitioners, and that becomes your job. So, but first we're going to talk a little bit about practice material. First of all, 10 slides, just some preliminary thoughts. You've heard some of this, but I'm going to emphasize this. Know what the contract includes. If you have Bloomberg, if you have Lexus, if you have Westlaw at your firm, know what's covered. Do not go outside of that contract. You can get into all sorts of problems. You could rack up hundreds, perhaps thousands of dollars. So do this. I love this slide. In the real world, using Lexus and Westlaw can be very expensive, which is why every summer there's a horror story about a summer associate who racked up thousands of dollars in Westlaw charges and then had to go explain himself to a partner. At the end of the summer, when they pass out summer associate report cards, the firm will make him stand next to the girl who got too drunk at the firm mixer and vomited on the partner's wife. Okay, I do not want you to be the person who goes outside of the contract and racks up thousands of dollars in charges, nor do I want you to be the person who gets drunk at the mixer and vomits on the partner's husband and or wife. Don't do that. Don't do either one of these. By the way, I've had people ask, do you get a warning when you go outside of the contract? That is up to the firm. In some firms, there will be a warning that will pop up saying, okay, you are leaving our contract area, but that is up to the firm. More often than not, there is not a warning. So know in advance. Number 2, don't be afraid to ask questions, particularly if your firm or agency has a law librarian. Take advantage of the librarian. Ask questions. Also, don't hesitate to go in. If you've been assigned a particular project and you're not sure what they want, ask. Don't waste time and rack up charges for something and then have to go explain why you spent 20 hours really doing what they weren't after. And the associate, the partner who gives you the project, will not be upset if you say, look, is this what you want? Do I understand you correctly? We went over this and I made notes, but I had a couple questions. Do that. Ask questions. Plan your research. The 7 Ps. Proper prudent planning prevents piss poor performance. Plan ahead. Remember, print books. Sometimes it is easier to find certain things in print sources. I always tell people that statutes are a lot easier. Start your research in print. Find the statute. Then hop online. And that way you're getting all the updates and everything. But start when you have an index and you can take advantage of that index. In Pennsylvania, we had something called a potty parity law that said that in public buildings, ladies' rooms have to be larger than men's rooms. The problem was when the General Assembly initially passed the statute, they did not use the term bathroom, restroom, toilet. The folks in Harrisburg, in their infinite wisdom, used the term water closet. How many people on this side of the Atlantic are going to do a search for water closets? If you hopped online, you didn't find that statute. If you used the index and looked up toilets, it said see water closets. And then that sent you right to the statute. By the way, it's since been amended. I think now it says public restrooms. So, yeah, sometimes, and by the way, sometimes some material's only in print. We have the three Cleckleys. You've heard of the books that Justice Cleckley wrote. West Virginia Evidence, West Virginia Civil Procedure, West Virginia Criminal Procedure. Two of the three are on Lexis. The third is not available online. You have to use the print copy. So remember that sometimes you still have to use print. Write your search down before going online. I know you get very used to just hopping on Lexis or Westlaw and typing in terms. The nice thing about writing your search down, you know what you looked for. And if you modify it, write down the terms that you used to modify it. So you know where you've been. You don't want to keep repeating yourself. Don't conduct the same search 10 times because you forgot to write down what you did. Take advantage of the reference attorneys, either live chat or the 1-800 number. They will help you put a search together that will find what you're after. Use them. Every now and then, just to annoy the folks at Westlaw, I will call and ask about federal cases. And that does not mean a case out of the federal government. There was an old reporter called Federal Cases that was published after the federal circuit courts went out of business back in 1912. There's not a separate library for it. I have been on the phone for 20 or 30 minutes with some very frustrated Westlaw rep trying to find it. It's good to keep them on their toes. And every now and then I put this call in just to annoy the hell out of them. But take advantage of them, because I've had West reps thank me. Say, look, I never heard of this source. Thank you so much for bringing this to my attention, because if you're asking this question, someone else is going to ask this question. Okay. So take advantage. Like I said, live chat or the 1-800 number. Don't run a natural language or terms and connector search if you have a citation. Your client has been cited for DUI. You've got the citation right in front of you. Start with the statute. Don't hop on with keywords and start looking for cases that way. The statute will take you into cases. Take advantage of that. When I was back at Dickinson, we had a dean, Walter Harrison Hitchler. He was dean from 1930 until 1954. And he used to tell his students, get out of bed and read the statute. And that is very good advice. If you have the statute, start there. You'll get into the cases that way. It's a lot easier. Remember that a terms and connector search will usually build better results than a natural language search. Now, there are 3 of us in this room who regularly do terms and connector searches. That's Nick, Stephanie, and I, because we're librarians. Okay, we just naturally gravitate towards term and connector. You guys gravitate towards natural language searching. That's the way people do it now. But you will get better results if you can get used to doing terms and connector searches. But within so many words. Save what you find in folders, or email what you find to yourself. Print off copies. Nothing is worse than having found the perfect case and you didn't save it. And I have had people in here saying, well, I'm still looking. I had it right in front of me. So save everything. Any questions on any of that? A lot of that's just common sense, but people forget about stuff like that. Okay, practice material. First of all, what is practice material? Well, it's really just a generic term for the material that's used in everyday practice. And this is the sort of stuff that makes practice fun, when you can get into some of this material. If you use this, be careful. For example, some of what we're looking at will provide you with a sample opening. If the sample opening that they give you, you're referencing the plaintiff and the sample opening says Pam. If your client's name is Amy, do not go into the courtroom and just read, well, Pam said, no, edit, 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 edit. Make it fit your specific situation. Okay. If you're using a form book, and you're copying a will out of a form book, and it's a general form book for nationwide use, and you have a place on the form that is provided to you for one witness, but West Virginia requires 2 witnesses. If you copy the form out and you don't put that second witness in there, you have just created an invalid will. What winds up happening, the client is going to sue the firm. Okay? The firm is going to fire you. Your spouse and or significant other will leave you. They will take the kids. Okay? Your cat will hate you and run away. You will lose your house, your car, and at a time in life when most people prosper, you will be reduced to living in New Jersey. That is the worst thing that can happen to you. Okay? So make sure that you use these as a starting point only, not an end point. Tailor it to your specific situation. Okay, the first thing I'm going to mention, there are 3 sets of books that are also available on Westlaw. Some people refer to these as the West Practice Trilogy, and that's a good way to reference these. The first one of these is something called Causes of Action, or COA. Just because something bad has happened to your client doesn't necessarily mean that there's a cause of action for that. Well, causes of action goes through and describes what might result as a result of what has happened to your client. They look at each step that arises under a given fact pattern. So if you go to COA, you will find just one article after another. Anything from negligence, someone's fallen down an elevator shaft, a death of a pallbearer who had a massive heart attack while at a funeral, fracking, and we'll look at that one specifically. It's going to provide you with an illustrative case, a sample complaint. Again, you use that as a starting point. Research guides that will give you West topic and key numbers. So if your firm has Westlaw, you can take your topic and key numbers and search for cases that way. It will cite you to annotations that you can find on either Lexis or Westlaw, because remember, ALR is available on both. Encyclopedia entries, legal periodical, articles, treatises, statutes, regulations. It's going to send you to all sorts of things. Available on Westlaw or in print. By the way, remember, Podview's first rule of legal research. If you are doing research in print, always, 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 always check the pocket part. If you don't check the pocket part, you miss the most recent information. That is your ticket to New Jersey. Don't do that. Okay, so what we're going to look at, this was one I found, because I know fracking is kind of big here in West Virginia. So 66 causes of action second, beginning on page 1. This was a 2015 article. So what do we talk about? Well, there's that prima facie case that you have to establish. So a case for negligence to recover for an injury caused by fracking. First of all, you have to show there was the defendant owed a duty to the plaintiff. The defendant breached that duty. Proximate cause. Injury to the plaintiff. This is all, I just copied this straight off of Westlaw. So you can see where you can just click on the section symbol. It will take you right to the section that discusses these. Yes?
And how do you find that on Westlaw? Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. Secondary sources, and just do a title search for causes of action. Secondary sources, causes of action, and it will come up. And then if you just do a search there for fracking, you'll get right into this. Very good question, thank you. I sometimes miss the obvious stuff, I'm sorry. I'm getting closer and closer to retirement. There are certain things that you just kind of forget when that happens. Okay, so requires proof that the defendant violated a statute. The purpose of the statute was to protect the interest of a group of individuals as opposed to the public generally. The group of individuals are those who live around these fracking operations. The statute clearly applied to the defendant's conduct. Violation of the statute is the cause of the plaintiff's injuries. And this guy was drilling half a mile away from your client's cabin up in the mountains. Your client went up this spring, turned on the water in the cabin, and flames shot out. Well, that's probably caused some problems for your client. Or maybe you're representing the defendant. You're representing the guy who was doing the drilling. Well, this is also going to tell you how you defend this. Negation of the cause of action. Maybe the statute of limitations has expired. You have to check that. Maybe another person is obligated to indemnity in this. Okay. So it goes through all of this. A wonderful set. Who's entitled to recover? Well, parties entitled to recover are owners and occupants of land near the gas or oil wells, persons injured by direct exposure to fracking chemicals. This can be brought as a class action. Who's liable? Well, oil and gas producers, drilling contractors. And again, you'll notice if we were on Westlaw, you can just click right into the sections that discuss this in more detail. But it starts out with the outline. What can you recover? Well, compensatory damages, punitive damages, maybe an injunction, maybe medical monitoring. They have to come over and keep testing the water to make sure your client isn't getting any bad chemicals in their water. Attorney fees, generally not available, however. Sorry about that, lawyers. Okay, wonderful place to start your research. The second one in the trilogy. Again, on Westlaw, secondary sources, a set called American Jurisprudence Proof of Facts, or POOF. Thank you for laughing at that. I try so hard to keep this stuff interesting. Now, even though it's called American Jurisprudence, this is not part of AmJur. This is a separate set of books. Okay? And it's a separate listing on Westlaw. Secondary sources, just do a search for proof of facts. You will find it. Currently in third series, but that does not mean that what is in first series, it's a secondary source, it doesn't mean what was in first series is no longer valid. And it's arranged into articles that talk about the proof that is required to prove your case. That's what it looks like in print. You go up in the library and use, I know you folks are not going to touch it in print, you're going to be online. So I'm a dinosaur, I still run up and use the print copy. But I'm still the one person in the library that runs up and uses Bouvier's Law Dictionary. The 1914 edition was the greatest law dictionary ever published. And I am the only person here that uses the damn thing. Okay, articles provide text, sample testimony. It's a wonderful set to use. It's going to send you to all sorts of secondary sources as well. Again, available on Westlaw and in print. So, negligence of a horse owner. Your poor client was out and some horse jumped up and, over a fence and kicked him in the head. So, one nice thing I like about this set, you have all these wonderful practice tips. It starts out by telling you that the liability is going to vary depending on whether your state has enacted an Equine Liability Act. Well, maybe you want to go look that up. See if West Virginia has such an act. Okay, the article, it tells you what the article is going to be addressing. It's going to discuss procedural issues. It's going to analyze the remedies that are available to the plaintiff, including the types of monetary damages that are available. It's going to provide a sample complaint, discovery demands, testimony, including expert witness testimony, because you might have an expert come out and testify regarding this particular horse's behavior. One other nice thing I like about this set has lots of these little observations. And if you're in practice, trust me, these can be very handy. If a horse owner repeatedly allows the animal to wander in a road, the horse owner might be criminally liable for reckless endangerment. And you will find these all through this particular article. So, we've talked about whether or not we have a cause of action. Okay, we've talked about how we go about proving it. Finally, AmJur trials. AmJur trials actually has a model trial. And it has everything from checklists that you should be asking the client. When the client walks in, this is the material you need to get from them. Sample openings, closings, direct examinations, cross-examinations, interrogatories. And this is all going to be in the model, and each one of these model trials covers a different topic. That's what it looks like in print. You're not going to use it in print, I know. I'm old. It's available on Westlaw. So, age discrimination against younger workers. Well, what all do you need to show in the fact? Well, you have to allege sufficient acts to show a prima facie cause of action. So that in this particular case that they're giving you, the employee is 38 years old, not a member of a protected category. The employer fired the employee. The employee performed his or her job better than any other person in the group. The employer was aware that they had a good performer, but the other co-workers were members of protected classes, so they fired this one person because they knew they could get away with it. Opening statement, what do you want to do? Well, you want to paint the plaintiff in a sympathetic light. You want to identify the employer as the defendant. You want to identify the job and talk about the hours worked. Work history is an issue. You want to talk about any other jobs they did. Debunk myths about reverse discrimination in general and reverse age discrimination specifically. And describe the employee's experience with this employer. It gives you, here's our sample opening. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good morning, afternoon. By the way, always, always, always be nice to jurors. They're getting paid dirt to come in and hear this case and decide it for you. Be nice to them, thank them for their service. They appreciate it. Thank you for your service here. I represent Mary. Now, if your client's name is Jan, okay, there is a librarian clause when you agree to come to law school that says if you do something stupid like walk in and just copy this out and say the client is Mary and the client's name is not Mary, we are allowed to track you down and slap you upside the head. Okay? And I'm entirely justified in doing that. Don't. Okay? Make sure you tailor it to your situation. Okay? Mary has been a waitress at restaurant. That means you put the name of the restaurant in there. Okay? For the past 9 years, again, tailor. If she's been there for 12 years, tailor it accordingly. She's now 27. Blah, blah, blah. She's an efficient server, the unanimous choice, the go-to girl for solving problems in the kitchen. We're trying to paint the plaintiff in a sympathetic light. Then we talk about the other waitress. Now, the other waitress is not an evil person. This is Sue. Sue and Mary are friends. You don't want to make Sue look bad. In fact, Sue's going to be testifying on Mary's behalf in this. So take advantage of these. This is a wonderful way to put your case together. One thing you do not want to do is keep reinventing the wheel. If you can find something like this and they are giving you all of this, use it. Okay? Wonderful, wonderful starting points. And this is what makes practice fun. When you look these up and you find that case that's perfect and you go through one of these and you pick out what questions you're going to use and what questions you're going to modify and what questions just don't apply at all, so you're just not going to mention those. Take advantage of this. The second of these practice materials that I'll mention, directories. Probably the best known lawyer's directory is one called Martindale-Hubbell. If you go up on the second floor of the library by the windows, you can see we have them in print. they've been around for a long time. Martindale's goes back to 1868. Hubble came around in 1870, and they merged in 1930. That's what it looks like in print. When I was in practice, we had a set of Martindale Hubble in the county law library, and to my knowledge, the only time anyone ever used it was one time our jury box had chairs that were set at a fixed height, and we had this short little lady on the jury and her feet didn't touch the floor. And so we went back and we got a couple copies of Martindale Hubble, and we took them out and put them under her seat so she could put her feet up on them. So it made her much more comfortable. So, but it is available at martindale.com. But if you're after, you want to find an attorney somewhere, you want to look someone up, the West Virginia Bar membership portal. And there's the link to it. You can go there, you can look up anyone in West Virginia who's admitted to practice, find out where they are, get their mailing address. If you want the email address, you do have to be a member of the West Virginia Bar, but otherwise you can get the mailing address and the other information. There are also directories of attorneys, judges, doctors, expert witnesses that are going to be available on both Lexis and Westlaw. And the expert witness directory is wonderful because folks post their resumes there, and they can be very helpful. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, very quickly, just to go over one other thing real fast, and that is ordinances. We don't teach you ordinances in law school, and we should. Municipal ordinances enacted by a municipal government, presuming they've been given the power to enact such ordinances. What kinds of areas of law are covered? Well, things like airports. This is my favorite municipal ordinance. Salt Lake City. I love B. Exemption for flying reindeer on Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve only, flying reindeer and any cargo they may be towing shall be exempt from provisions of subsection A of this section. And Mark is not making this up. Salt Lake City enacted this a number of years ago. But traffic, like unattended horses, and if you're saying, who cares about unattended horses? Well, trust me, if you're in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where the Amish folk bring their buggies in on market day, yeah, this is an issue. Or zoning, or general offenses. Here we have pimping in Morgantown. Or public indecency. This is lewd and lascivious cohabitation in St. Albans. It's illegal for two unmarried people to live together. They couldn't enforce this today, but it's still on the books. It was interesting. The very first year I was here, I had a student from St. Albans, and I showed this. She raised her hand. She said, my boyfriend and I live together, and we rent from the mayor. Whoopsie. Okay, other things, streets and roads, utilities, businesses, guns. You know, ordinances can be big. McDonald versus Chicago before the US Supreme Court a couple years ago. Chicago enacted an ordinance banning handguns. Yeah, sorry, that got overturned. It made it the whole way up to the Supreme Court. West Virginia ordinances. Chapter 7, Article 1 of the West Virginia Code grants counties the power to adopt ordinances. Chapter 8, or Article 11, does the same thing for villages, cities, and towns. I'm still getting used to saying that. Pennsylvania, we have one town. Everything else in Pennsylvania is either a township, a borough, or a city. And then there's Bloomsburg, which is our one and only town. But you'll notice, and the same thing would apply for Chapter 7, the ordinances cannot be contrary to the Constitution or the laws of the state. But they have the power to enact this. Where do you find these? Well, first of all, the county websites, many of them, maybe all of them, I have not checked every single one, but every one I have visited does have the county ordinances on it. And you can find a link to the county websites at www.wv.gov. /local. So as near as I can tell, they're all there, but I can't say that absolutely because I haven't been to every one of them. Maybe this summer I'll have enough free time and I can just spend a day going through county websites. I'm still trying to visit all the counties, so slowly but surely. I was in the hospital down, what's the county south of here?
Marion?
No, it wasn't Marion. Preston. I was in the Preston County Hospital overnight. I think I caught the flu there. So, but everyone was very nice. But anyway, where else to find these? Lexis Advance. Lexis is starting to put municipal ordinances up. You will not find them on Westlaw. But Lexis is working their way through. They're up to 8 municipalities. So, I mean, I know where Beckley and Charleston all are. I don't have a clue where Golly Bridge is, but they're gradually getting through these. As I said, Lexis doesn't have them. To find them on Lexis, go to statutes and legislation, /West Virginia, /municipal codes, and they're all there. And they have told me, I've talked to the folks at Lexis, that's one of their goals is to keep adding more. They want to make this a specialty area, because Westlaw isn't getting into it at all. You can also go to the Conway Green website. Conway Green is a legal publisher based in Ohio, and they have quite a number of the West Virginia ordinances available, and it's just www.conwaygreen.com. And this will all be up on the website. Do not expect that every municipal ordinance is going to be available online. Some municipalities, they're kept in the town hall. Some municipalities that are small enough, just a little village of 200 people, they're probably in a shoebox in the mayor's bedroom. If you are working on these and you need some background information, probably the leading treatises on the subject, McQuillan, The Law of Municipal Corporations. It's available in print and on Westlaw. NTU on Local Government Law. Available in print and on Lexis. And if you want one that provides you with forms for ordinances, Matthews Municipal Ordinances. And of the 3 of those, NTU is my favorite. I find McQuillan to be just confusing as all the jeebers. But NTU is very well written. And as I said, either Lexis or in print. Yeah, this is the sort of thing you'll find in there. So we're talking about state acts validating local government creation. So it just gives you a background when you're drafting these. It can be very helpful. This is Matthews. Here we have a sample regulation for a source service charge. So if you work for the sewage authority and you have to draft an ordinance, it might be a good place to go. Okay. Any questions on any of, you all get to see my cats today. So any questions on any of this? So thank you. So I believe Professor Stunt is next.
Yes, indeed.